Greetings, students. In today's video, I would like to share my repertoire with the black pieces against one of the most popular openings in chess, the London system, which I'm always delighted to see currently with the black pieces. So our opponents are going to start with d4, we're going to be playing d5, and after bishop to f4, I want you to play c5. I usually view myself as playing Queen's Gambit accepted with the black pieces over here, and so if they ever take c5, I'm just striking the pawn with e6. If your opponents are going to try and hold the pawn with b4, you always have queen f6 in these positions. And in general, the same traps that work in Queen's Gambit accepted for the white pieces are going to be working in a very similar fashion over here with black. If they decide to leave a c5 hanging, for example, let's say they're going to be playing knight to f3, we simply take on c5 and the plan is very simple. I guess the knights go out, we want to castle, and then we will be preparing the pawn break e5. If you can get e5 later on, not only the light square bishop can move out, but also you will have overwhelming space advantage in the center. Now I have to say, it's pretty rare for people to take, and you could see e3, more popular move. Now, over here, there are a couple of ways you could play with black, and in the previous videos, I've shown you knight c6, followed by knight f6, but today I want to change that. I want you to be playing c takes d4 for a very simple reason. We're transitioning from the London system to Caro-Kann. And a lot of people who are not familiar with the e4 systems, those are the London system players, they're not gonna know the typical ideas here for the white pieces. Normally, this position is reached when white plays e4. We're playing c6, d4, d5, and we have this exchange variation. And if white played bishop f4 here, we have exactly that position. Nevertheless, our opening started a little bit differently. And from here on, black's game is really very simple. We're going to go knight c6. Over here, we have the threat of queen b6 with a double attack. So if your opponents are not going to be playing moves like c3 or knight f3, please utilize the move queen b6. Typically in the London system, when black is threatening queen b6, white then plays the move c3 in order to react to queen b6 with the move queen to b3. And over here, this is already quite good for white. If we are going to take them, this is like one group and the double pawns are not as bad for them. Actually, this pawn structure is considered quite good and flexible. Please notice that if this pawn was in e2, actually, these would be double isolated pawns and then they're not good. They're considered just to be weaknesses. And over here, white is threatening to take on b6 and give us those double pawns. So instead of queen b6, we're simply going to be playing the move bishop to f5. We can always expect white to play queen b3 and hit our pawn, but you could just play casual queen d7 with normal healthy development to follow this up. So knight f3 is a bit more popular at all levels. We're going to be playing e6. And here I recommend usually to get bishop d6 quite soon. So for example, let's say bishop d3, that's one of the lines. Get bishop out. And if you manage to swap both bishops, it's hard for white to continue with the kingside attack. You see, you have the semi-open c file, so that means you're finding it easier to move the pieces to the queen side, and so that's where you're going to be looking for counterplay to open up the position later with pawn breaks b5, b4, maybe a5, a4, a3. Once you have castle, then put the rooks in the right position. They have semi-open e file, and usually they find it easier to move the pieces to the king side. That's why they have king side attacks very often in these positions, but without the bishops, your king is going to be very safe. So I imagine you can just castle, play perhaps rook b8, rook c8, and just prepare to open up the queen side, creating targets and continuing your play against that later. Now, if we go back, we just have to look at one more line. After c5, they could be playing the move c3. And here I recommend queen b6. Quite powerful. I think most of your opponents are going to be playing queen b3, and do not forget that the double isolated pawns are very weak. Over here we quickly equalize with knight to c6, and you have long-term advantage of continuous play against those two weaknesses. Plus, the development for black is really easy. Bishop out, e6, then the other knight goes out, and the dark square bishop will find many squares to go to as well. Now, as you know, some players try to start the London system with the move knight to f3, and then they play bishop f4. I want you to nevertheless still go for c5. If they play bishop f4, we have to not forget to grab the center. For example, c takes d4, knight d4, and you can see that white lost the pawns in the middle, so f6 followed by e5 is going to give you huge space advantage, which can be utilized by your minor pieces, which are going to find excellent and safe squares in the center soon in the middle game. So I think over here, a little bit stronger testing move for white would be d takes c5, And we're just going to be continuing the game with e6, same style as if it was Queen's Gambit accepted. a5, a typical idea as well, trying to attack the base of the pawn chain in order to make the front weaker. Have c3, takes, and we're going to steal this idea b6 from dead openings as well. So the bishop is helping us to apply pressure not only on c5, but on b4 as well. And one of the common ways of continuing the position would be playing knight c6, queen a5, followed by bishop c5 as possible, and you have easy development, the c5 pawn they cannot hold on to. There's just one trap white usually sets up. It seems like black can win the pawn back this way. But here, white can play knight d2, and if you take rook c1, black is losing a piece on c8, right? So do not walk into this one if possible.